Hi, everybody. I'm Candid Frank Stanisci of Candid Frank Live's Leaf Talk. Welcome to the Spanglish Network, World Network on Zingo TV, Channel 250. Please remember to download the Zingo TV app and ask Microsoft never to update your computer ever, ever, ever with an explicit permission. Because sometimes if you don't ask for permission and you're going to use your computer, at the respective app stores for iOS and Android devices. While you download, make sure you rate and a comment and leave it whatever. And both apps are free. Zingo TV. Blah, 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 blah. Let's get to the goddamn show. Jeepers creepers. Oh, I hate computers.
Uh,
I hate computers. Good golly. I
I'm
cannot believe what I went through. Like, and Aaron's advice was to me, tell the people what your advice is when your computer to ensure that Microsoft doesn't surprise you. I'll put it that way.
turn off automatic updates. Go into your settings, people. Do yourselves all a favor. Turn them off. You'll get a little orange dot in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, right next to your clock. You can update it at your convenience. That way, it doesn't. That way, you don't just turn on your computer and everything goes haywire.
And you don't get an orange middle finger instead.
Exactly.
Because I got the orange middle finger. I'm telling you, I'm feeling really fingered. Oh boy, oh boy. Yeah, computers are great, but old people like me, I don't know. We just, young bucks, you guys, have the patience, whatever. Well, the last time we talked about what the Leafs should do, and I hate to toot my own horn, but I did mention that Mitchell Marner's got to get into the dirty areas. He's got to do it. He's got to be engaged. He's got to get involved. And I said he doesn't have to fight. If you remember, I said doesn't have to fight. He just has to. He has to go into places where maybe he doesn't feel comfortable. Did he go into places he didn't feel comfortable, Aaron?
There was a period of time during that game where he was actually leading all players in hitting. So
Yeah.
that's one part. And I don't know if you caught the tail end of the game there. I'm pretty sure you did. At the final whistle, he ended up engaged in a little mutual hugging with Mr. Kachuk.
Yeah, and he was punching to Chuck's fist with his face.
Yes, exactly.
On multiple occasions.
I saw a lot of people calling Mitch Marner soft.
And for God's sakes,
hold on. Bear with me here. Okay, so there's a lot of people out there in the Twitterverse who have obviously never played the game calling Mitch Marner soft. Now, I don't know what says soft more. Throwing punches with the glove on after a whistle right next to a referee, or to send a message in a game you've already lost, or being the one taking the punches and laughing. Personally, I think the person punching with their gloves on after the whistle is the one that's soft, because you don't have the balls to do it while the game is actually on. That's just me personally. I'm glad, and kudos to Mitch for laughing it off.
Of course, by hockey standards, Aaron, we're not talking about a human being here. We're not talking about personality outside of hockey. We're talking about, by hockey definition, he is soft. He's not a fighter. By the absence of his willingness to fight, to hit, up until this last game, it makes him, by definition, in hockey standards, not person standards, not personhood, just hockey standards, he is a soft player. He stays away up until this game. He stays away from the tough areas for the most part. He does his dangling, his stick handling, and all that lovely stuff. Does that make him not a good hockey player? Of course not. Yeah, dummies. All I'm saying is, and I'm not saying that to you, Aaron. All I'm saying is that unfortunately, I feel like I'm going to get a headache repeating myself. The standards of the game change in the playoffs. What is considered soft in the regular season is unacceptable, unpalatable, and a problem for every team if a team doesn't understand and take into consideration that intimidation is one of the main tools of the playoffs, especially for a team that doesn't get very good officiating.
But as you mentioned, Mitch Marner did actually turn it around last night. The leaders in
Perfectly.
hits in perfect order were Nola Chari with 7, Jake McCabe with 5, and Mitch Marner with 4. And it's important to note as well, Jake McCabe and Nola Chari were both in the dog pile at the end, where McCabe was getting double teamed by Sam Bennett and Brandon Montour. Personally, I thought that those dudes were absolutely cowardly, punching McCabe while he was on the ice, thinking that they were doing something good. Now, this was after Bouchard tried to run uh, Riley in the end boards right at the end there, and this all of this didn't have to happen. It was not necessary. It was not required. And I think the problem is that there's a lack of deterrent for needless late game violence in the NHL.
Not
The actions
Not
of
always. Not always,
well,
because the exact same Aaron, I watched the Edmonton situation where Nurse was suspended for a game.
mhm.
Nurse did the exact same thing you just defined that happened to Riley. He did the exact same thing. He charged at a guy and rammed him into the boards, right? At the end of the whistle when he didn't have the puck and the game was ending. Nurse, Edmonton Oiler, got a 1-game suspension. And he got a suspension for what they called starting a fight. In
Yes.
other
Now,
words, go ahead. Go ahead. I'll just say the contact that he laid out initiated a fight. I've seen contact like that many times, and I've never heard it called initiating a fight. I've seen it not called as a suspension or a penalty, and I've seen it called as a suspension and penalty. I just don't know which time we're talking about.
here's the thing. That wasn't what got Darnell Nurse suspended for a game. What got Darnell Nurse suspended for a game was him turning to Brandon Haig off the faceoff with less than 5 minutes left and saying, "Hey, do you want to go?" And then they dropped the gloves. That's what was considered the instigator. The
Okay,
cross check to the face of the Florida player was warranted because that player had been acting that cross check, sorry, to the face of that Vegas player, Pietrangelo, was warranted because he'd been acting like a jerk all night, including at the end of the game a massive chop that he got suspended for on Leon Draisaitl's exposed left wrist.
an over an over the head slash.
Yeah. Oh, this was a
A,
beautiful.
a, a
Dude was
literal, a
flicking forward.
literal, a literal. This is a Rocket Richard slash we're talking about here.
Yeah.
That's the kind of hit that Rocket Richard ended up suspended for the balance of the season and started a riot in Montreal. That's the kind of hit that was, that kind of smack that was. My point being that I'm confused. And I know most people will say, Frank, you're easily confused. They're probably right, but maybe this time you can cut me some slack. I'm just not sure what instigation of a fight requires a 1-game suspension, and what ends up being something that the linesmen back up and everybody watches the two guys go at it. It's not the first time I've seen or heard of. It's common practice that at face-offs, these choreographed fights happen all the time. And this is the first time I've heard somebody get suspended for making an invitation.
Oh yeah, no, this is one of those things where it gets more frustrating. And I as a fan watching the game, we're not asking that you call every single penalty, but we're saying make the penalties that you do call make sense. Do you know what I mean? Like for instance,
I know what
Radko
you mean,
Gudas.
but you're being too nice. You're bending over backwards to try and make it easy for them, but you're just making it harder. Aaron,
Radko
yes,
Gudas
we do
ran.
want them to call every penalty, because if they call every penalty, the players won't be called for those penalties anymore. There's one thing that hockey players understand. Coaches don't like you in the penalty box, and they are Pavlov's dog. I don't care what anybody says. Hockey players are Pavlov's dog. You can teach them.
But and I think the thing is, Radko Gudas boarded slash charged David Kampf with approximately 7 minutes left in the second period,
Mm-hmm.
which caused a whole bunch of stuff. He was not penalized on the play. I don't know if you noted that, Frank.
Oh, no,
The
no, no.
only the only person to come away out of that with a penalty was T.J. Brody, who was given 2 minutes for holding the stick approximately 30 feet away from the infraction. Now,
Holding the
Gudis,
stick.
yeah,
Holding the stick.
yeah,
That is a penalty.
yeah. Oh
Oh,
no, it's a legitimate penalty. Don't get it wrong. He saved a goal. But at the same time, Radko Gudis came from approximately 75 feet away from the top left point into the bottom right corner to hit David Comp a full second after the whistle went, and there
it
was
was
no
later
call.
than that. It was later than that. He hit him. He hit him so late. The referee already had the puck in his hands, and the other guys were ready for a face-off.
Gudis turns around like he's looking for a fight, and then two of his teammates come over to stand in front of him. It's like, you're dude, coward, hiding behind your teammates after making an illegal hit. Come on,
Listen,
bud.
if you have the permission of the officials, I've always stated this, and this is the problem with the Leafs. Not as it's a problem with the Leafs that isn't their fault. The Leaf organization and the team itself, they play very clean hockey. Okay, anybody that wants to have an argument with me about that, go ahead. Go ahead. Uh, their main players, they play a clean game of hockey. You don't see them that often. You're starting to see it. We saw a little bit of it in the last game where the Leaf initiates the punch to the face in a scrum, right? We don't see that. That's not the way the Leafs play. That's the way Tampa plays. That's the way Florida plays. That's the way Boston plays. All these teams, that's what they do, and they have to do in the playoffs, which is, and we heard the expert coach on the panel for Hockey Night in Canada, who was a coach with the Leafs and coached, if I'm not mistaken, the AHL team they have, the Marlies. He said, "You better throw the first punch." You remember that comment? You better throw the first punch. That's what he said. And it's common knowledge. It's common knowledge in the playoffs. You know, penalties are called, penalties aren't called. You don't know. The referees have this, they're dyslexic. They don't know, like they got the whistle in their hand, the ball fell out. I don't know. They just are not consistent. And Aaron, I disagree 100%. If they called every penalty, there would be so many fewer debates on what's a penalty and what isn't, because they wouldn't be letting anything go. And they don't need to let everything go all the time. Eventually, the players, they're Pavlov's dog. It's infuriating because when they don't make calls, it gives a sense that you're siding with a team. That's all.
And you know what? A penalty is a penalty is a penalty. There's
That's
no
it.
such thing as a situational penalty. There's no such thing as
What happened to when you slash a guy in the hands? It's a penalty. All
there's
year, the
no
last couple of years. The
there's
last couple of years, you slash a guy on the gloves, it's a penalty. All of a sudden, I'm watching Florida playing Toronto, and I'm going, that's not a penalty anymore.
That's like I was saying, there's no such thing as a situational penalty. If it's a penalty in the first period, it's a penalty in the second period, it's a penalty in the third period, it's a penalty in overtime. It doesn't matter if it's game 1, game 5, game 25, or game 103. If
I
it's a
agree
penalty, it's a penalty,
100%.
it's a penalty.
I agree 100%. But here's my issue. Slashing to the hands was a penalty in 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022. Then
Not this year.
2023 happens. And now you slash a guy on the hands. And remember, no matter how gently, as long as you used your stick against the player's hands, it was a penalty, no matter how gentle. Because if they didn't call it slashing, they called it hooking. It was the same move. The same thing. Tapping the gloves is hooking. When you're behind the guy, that's what they called it. If they couldn't call it slash, they'd call it hooking. No, the National Hockey League is incompetent when it comes to officiating. And the reason we can say that is because they make it so easy for us to arrive at that conclusion. It's such an easy conclusion to arrive at. And they got a moron, and I don't care how big he is, deciding who gets a fine, who gets a suspension. The guy doesn't know. I don't know. Been in too many fights, I think.
Here's the thing, though, with the Department of Player Safety, it's not his job to appease the fans. It's his job to keep the owners happy. And as evidenced
Yeah.
by the fact that
Which
he has not,
owners? Which owners? Which
as,
owners?
as
Not all
ev-
of them.
as evidenced by the fact that he has not been fired yet. he appears to be appeasing all of the right owners. And that includes the people on the ownership group from Chicago and, funnily enough, Boston, who have had deep Stanley Cup runs with their clutch and grab style of high play. Not to mention a player that likes to use other players
You
like
could say Tampa.
lollipops. Tampa's not on the ownership board, but they are. There are some alliances there with Boston. So go figure.
I just know from what I see, it you don't you can throw Homer all you want, but we keep seeing that. Like I mentioned this. What's that kid's name? The guy that we're trying to forget his name because the coach doesn't want to play him. Got suspended early in the Florida in that Tampa series, 3 games.
Oh,
You know
that
the
guy.
guy.
The guy
You
that's
know
on the
that
third
guy.
line now.
What's his name? What's his name? What's his name?
Bunting, I think.
Yeah, that's it. That's his name. That's his name. Bunting. He became a nobody, and then he got suspended this year in the playoffs for 3 games. 3 games. How many other players have been suspended for 3 games in the playoffs? And how many of their players have done what he's done, and some even worse that haven't been suspended? They make
Yeah,
it so easy. They make it
it's
so easy.
it's a fine line. I think they finally decided to give Michael Bunting his lifetime achievement suspension. There's a congratulations, you've managed to upset enough
Yeah,
officials and other teams'
we've been
coaches.
told that you're embarrassing us, so we're going to punish you. That's what this is all about. That's all it ever was with Bunting. We've been told by other teams and other coaches and other players that you're embarrassing us, so we're going to punish you. There's a guy Bennett who's worse than Bunting. Is worse than Bunting. And he's getting away literally scot-free. I don't know.
Yep, he's been Bennett has actually been suspended for his actions in the playoffs before, in particular actions against one of the Nashville Predators players. So the fact that he's still out there doing the stuff that he's doing, and the fact that Florida managed to injure 2 Leafs players so far in this playoff series, and nothing's been done about it, is to me the bigger joke.
Yeah, I just about lost my mind. I was having a conversation with somebody, and somebody said to me, well, he probably didn't get suspended because he didn't hurt the guy. And then, well, he probably got suspended because he did hurt the guy. So which is it?
Because there's 1-1 there, but for both teams.
Which is it? Yeah, no, as much as we can talk about all this baloney, all this crap, what I can say about this is it's a very interesting series now. Now it's 3-1. It's no longer a series that the team has not won since 1942. A Leaf team has not, come back from a 3-0 deficit. Now it's just a question of coming back from a 3-1 deficit. So, there's been a few of those. Leafs have been witness to that. They've had it happen to them. So now it's time for payback. And the more I see this crap that goes on with this officiating, the more I'm pulling for the Leafs, especially because, and honestly, because I think I enjoy, it's like the underdog, but this is worse. This is the put underdog, coming through. So, right now the Leafs are the underdog, and we know that they might not make it. There's a good chance. They've got to win 3 games in a row. It's a lot of games to win in a row, but they've done it this playoff season. They've won 3 in a row before. They beat Tampa 3 times in a row. So maybe they can do it, to another Florida team. And the way they're going to do it is Marner's going to have to keep playing the way he's playing. He hopefully, ripped off the Band-Aid, the Band-Aid where, maybe, this punch in the face stuff's not so bad. Maybe, you know what? People are saying, wait, like he's going to get a lot of respect from his teammates. Trust me when I say this. I'm not a pro, never played pro hockey, but I think I do understand people. And I think those hockey players are people, and they're gonna pat. Marner probably got a lot of high fives and a lot of hugs from a lot of his teammates for taking the crap that he took, because him taking that is a message to the rest of the team to what it's going to take to win. So everybody has to heighten their willingness to put up with the crap that Florida's going to throw at them, and the Leafs have to take it, not necessarily dish it back or not dish it out, but take it and keep coming at Florida. That's what they got to do. They can beat them with talent. This other stuff that they need to do, Aaron, this is the irony here. They've got the talent to win, but it's not the talent that'll guarantee the win. The talent makes them better, but the willingness to want it more than Florida, I think, is the key that they've learned from that last game.
Now, definitely, the willingness to take a punch to get the job done is something that they haven't had in the past. Now, this has only been one game, so we'll have to see if it continues for tonight. But this newfound willingness by some players to take a fist to the fox is one thing, but sustaining that over the remainder of the however many playoff games that they have left, and I'm really hoping it's more than one, is going to be the true acid test.
Well, hopefully the officiating is good enough not to allow Florida to put out more Leaf players for the series. That to me is a clear indication. Again, it's not hard to doubt the officiating when you look at that. Neither of the players are out because of clean hits. That's the thing. So Florida must know they can do it, and they've been confirmed as been able to do it because they're not spending time out of the series. So it's a free pass. You give them a free pass to do that kind of stuff. Florida'd be stupid not to do it.
No, and a lot of it just comes down to making sure that you flood the officials' attention at the end of each whistle. At the end of each whistle, just throw so much out there that the referee doesn't know what to call, and you can get away with murder. Pretty much what it boils down to.
Apparently, well, I don't know. They've said to the Leafs through Bunting that you can't dive, right? That Leafs can't dive. If you question it, then you're going to be punished because you're complaining. So there's not many avenues left for them to go. The only avenue they can do is ignore what's going on and plow right through, and take whatever it is that they have to take. They got to decide, is it worth the ultimate goal? The ultimate goal right now is for the Leafs, this Leaf team, these Leaf players, especially we always refer to the four. I'll make it five because I'd like to throw Riley in there too. To make it past the second round. I mean, for them to make it past the second round. Remember, all these players, 7 years, the young guys, and then you have Riley another 2 more or 3 years after that of not being here where they are today, which is with an opportunity to win a couple of games in the second round, and maybe even win the second round. There's a lot of motivation. The pride that they have will be exposed. And I think we saw it. We saw it in Marner in that last game. And that's what this is all about. It's all about pride. And the motivation can be, if they feel like we do, that they're getting a raw deal from the officiating, use it as fuel, use it as motivation, and hopefully they'll end up on top. I hope they do. I'm supporting the super underdog because they're not supposed to win this. Nobody wants them to win it. It's them against the world. So go for it, baby.
For sure.
Your turn.
I'm always succinct.
Okay. Well, let's talk about Wall because he's been one. And he's been one for all season for the American Hockey League team, the Marlies, and the Toronto Maple Leafs. He's been a very consistent goaltender, no matter where he's been. And the biggest thing that I can credit him with is, it can't be easy with playing for one team 1 second, another team the next second. You have no training camp. It's an amazing season for him to be good at.
Oh no, this has definitely been one of the better seasons that he's had. He was 16-4-1 with the Marlies, and he's now 6-1-0 in 7 games with the Leafs during the regular season, including 6 straight wins to finish off the season. Now he's up in the NHL. He got his first start. He got his first win. He's being called up huge to backstop Samsonov and to be the 1A in front of Matt Murray's now 1B. The Leafs don't really have a choice in this matter. He is, as far as I'm concerned, he is going to be on their roster. They cannot bring Matt Murray back. Samsonov, provided he heals, should be their starter or their 1A at any rate, and Wall definitely needs to be their 1B. He's earned it and he's proved it.
You win, Aaron. You made me speechless.
Yeah. But honestly, though, I mean, this kid has been absolutely spectacular. He actually did something that I really respect him for. 2 seasons ago, when there were first rumblings that he could potentially be up with the Leafs, especially when Shalgren was playing really, really well, and he was basically the lead goalie for the Marlies because Shalgren was up. He made a list with paper and pencil, those people that he deemed most important to him, and deleted all of his social media. He has no Twitter. He has no Facebook. He has no Instagram. He has no TikTok. Nothing like that. He
has no issues.
There's exactly. He literally, if they say we don't care about what you say, literally he can't care. I think it's absolutely fantastic. He didn't know that the Leafs had traded for Ryan O'Reilly until he got to the rink and saw his name on the lineup sheet. That's how removed he's made himself from this, and he says it's been a real benefit for him in helping him focus and do his job better. And kudos to him and more power to him for doing that.
So I'm watching Hockey Night Canada, and I'm listening to the diagnosis of the panel on his mental attitude, acumen. And now I'm beginning to ask myself, so it wasn't a psychologist, sports psychologist that helped him out. It was turning off his phone.
Pretty much. I mean, in conjunction with a sports psychiatrist, I'm pretty sure. But
I'm wondering if I could take that message.
It's entirely possible. You could just.
Do I have to give up this? Do I have to give up this?
Well, technically speaking, no, because this isn't really social media. This is more of a broadcast thing.
Informative television.
Well, there you go.
Venting television.
But if you got rid of your Facebook, if you got rid of your Twitter, if you got rid of your Instagram, your TikTok, your Mumble, your whatever the heck it else is that you have out there, you may feel better for it.
There's only one issue. I put this on my Facebook.
Well, that's fine. That doesn't mean you have to use
YouTube. Is YouTube okay? Is YouTube okay?
YouTube's not social media. It's just a video hosting site. So, yeah.
Oh, because I put this show on YouTube.
Yeah.
So I could still do that even if I left.
Well, see, here's the thing. I actually took a break from social media for a bit. I didn't read.
Was it by your choice, or were you asked to take a break?
No. It was a personal choice. There was a 12-hour stretch where apparently I insulted somebody so badly enough they revoked my ability to use one of my platforms. But
there you go.
A different thing entirely. I sometimes find it's a good thing to just take a week, just not look at it.
The other version of what you're talking about is to not engage, which requires sometimes the appearance of not listening, more or less ignoring, and biting your tongue.
Here's the thing. A good friend once said to me, you don't have to get involved in every fight you think you're being invited to online.
Oh, absolutely not.
And there's a lot of that.
I was there once. I did not like it. It was not fun. Because, it's not fun because it's just not fun. It's like the phrase, it's not fun. And it means something. It's not fun. Let's talk about something really fun. And that if you're the coach of the Toronto Maple Leafs and your biggest criticism is, why can't he decide what his lineup looks like?
God bless Keefe for this, man, and I got to say kudos to Steve Dangle for coming up with the Slurpee line combo line. It looks like they're trying some stuff in practice again, and I'm absolutely loving it. It's refreshing to see. Put it.
I got a line for you that I just came up with because I feel like competing for that honor.
Sure.
He's putting out a conga line.
Oh.
Think about that. It's a conga line because there's not really three. There's a whole bunch of them, and they just go around like this. And
That
it's
could work.
confusing to the opposition, right? It's confusing to the opposition. You don't know where in the conga line the guys are going to come out. Um, yeah, no, you know what? Look, at this point, at this time in the season, in this time in the history of Keith, a coach who has a fantastically good record, who has done very well in the regular season. Admittedly, that doesn't really mean much in the playoffs other than to get you home ice advantage, which the Leafs could use later on if they're lucky enough to give themselves that chance. He has been a successful coach. The team has had you know great records, great point totals, top goal scorer, top assist getter, top 10 scorers. The one thing this team hasn't developed a reputation for until this year, where they've looked like they were a defensive team. This playoff season and this season more than any other, they appear to not just give defensive structure. Okay. They actually put into it, which again, that goes to the soft part of the definition of a hockey team. A soft hockey team is a team that doesn't give much pushback, that doesn't play defensive very well, and just plays, okay, give us our turn, we'll take our turn, you take yours, and then we'll take ours. No, you don't get a turn. And that's what the Leafs have done really well this year. And they're going to need to do that at their best in this game in a few minutes.
So just as a lead into this sort of thing, so we're talking about lines here. The top six haven't changed. You've got Yarncroke, Matthews, Marner on the first line. You've got Kerfoot, Tavares, and Nylander on the second line. Which, again, I'm not so keen on having Kerfoot up there, but that's just me. Then you get into the third line of Bunting, O'Reilly, Achari. So once again, Keefe is going with the big three up the middle with Matthews, Tavares, and O'Reilly. Now, third line. Fourth line. This is where it gets fun. Kampf, Lafferty, and Giordano on the left-hand side. Which,
that's because of the 7 defensemen.
Yeah, no, I get that, but at the same time, I'm kind of interested to see how Giordano would do in the opposing team zone, digging for a puck in the corner. And at the same time, I'm kind of hoping that if he sees a shot coming from the point, he doesn't instinctively go down to try to block it, especially if it's from one of our home players. But
yeah, you raise an interesting point, an interesting opportunity. But as I said, as you remember, in this series, I predicted they'd go to 7 defensemen. They went to 7 defensemen, and I think you saw, and I'm fully faithful, and I understand I can understand what Keefe is doing, and I can almost predict what he's going to do. Tonight he's going with the 11 and 7. Then you're saying, and it's going to be for the same reason. And what's been successful for them is that the forwards of Florida have not been able to wear down the Leaf defense because there's an extra defenseman in the lineup, and those forwards don't know who they're dealing with. So there's a bit of a merry-go-round going on, and they really don't know who their defenseman is that they're trying to. You go after one guy, and then there's somebody else out there you didn't count on. So the hope for the Leafs with the 7 defensemen, and I don't know about playing Giordano up, but still it comes down to the big guys, and I'm talking about Matthews and Marner and of course the captain, who by the way is going to have a big night tonight. I'm predicting that right now, that the captain's going to have a big night tonight. It's going to be a good one. And I think Matthews is going to be in there contributing in a smaller way, but it will be the captain tonight that will have the big game for the Maple Leafs, I think. And it will be because he will find an opportunity that if the coach plays his lines right, in other words, uses home ice advantage to his advantage, I think the benefactor will be John Tavares, the captain of the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Right. There is no way, anyway, that Tkachuk should ever end up on the ice against Camp, Lafferty, or whoever happens to be their winger at the time. That should never happen. Coaching fail if that ever happens. But
well, they're at home, so
we'll
know if he fails. He has the last change.
Exactly. So that cannot happen. You cannot allow that to happen. You cannot just sit there and just run through the 4 lines. You have to be selective. Some guys are going to get double shifted tonight. You know that. Some guys are going to end up sitting for extended period of times. That is going to happen. But at the same time, this is where Keith has a real chance to show his abilities as a head coach. We've always talked before about how he's been relatively adaptable and good at that, and good at seeing through everything. If he can't manage to do that tonight, man, they're done. That's really the long and the short of it.
Well, no disagreement here. I think we're pretty much on the same page. Let's talk about Vancouver and Edmonton.
Right. So we're going to look at Vegas and Edmonton right now, and that got a little contentious, as we
I said
mentioned
Vancouver,
earlier.
sorry.
as we
Wishful
mentioned
thinking.
as we mentioned earlier, Pietrangelo and Nurse have both been suspended by 1 game apiece. Um, After the way that the game ended last time, yeah, it was just weird. Um, but yeah, Pietrangelo was punished for slashing Leon Draisaitl on the uncovered wrist with 1 minute and 31 left in the third period. Now he got a 5-minute major for the slash and a game misconduct. This automatically should have triggered a game suspension. It should not have been necessary for him to have a hearing because he got the game misconduct. He got the game misconduct in the last 5 minutes of the period. It should automatically be a game. At least that's what it was written into the rules. So I'm glad to see that happen.
Yeah, the
You know,
chicanery that happens at the with a minute left, that kind of stuff, or
yeah,
after the final buzzer.
yeah,
Uh,
and
that used to be something that was suspendable.
and 40 seconds later, Nurse was assessed a minor penalty for instigating by saying to Nicholas Haig, "Hey, do you want to go?" And then they went confetti gloves. So
Ugh.
yeah,
That's the
I know.
dumbest thing I've ever heard. And instigating because he invited a guy to have a fight. Instigation has to do with beating the crap out of somebody who doesn't, who's in the middle of a tussle with another person. That I don't know.
Oh, like you mean being the third man in, like
I don't
Cam
know.
Bennett was after
I,
Ricciari engaged Pacioretty
yeah,
behind the
yeah,
net
yeah.
there. Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Hey, listen, look at Carolina. I mean, they're waiting now for the winner of Florida and Toronto.
And you know what? Honestly, I don't envy whatever team ends up lucky enough to play them next. They did manage to salt away the New Jersey Devils.
Pretty good
So
team.
yeah. Oh no, an absolutely fantastic team and a lot of fun to watch. Especially with Rod the Bod behind the bench for the past couple of years, they've been very exciting. Um, there's a fair number of ex-Leafs there. If the Leafs make it through their series with Florida here, they'll end up playing another Stahl brother. So
Yep.
that'll be fun. Um, but yeah, they rode secondary scoring all the way through there. Their primary players got shut down.
But that's
But
what
yeah,
happens in the playoffs.
yep,
You don't make it to you got to be for the most part you have to have a defensive line to make the playoffs. In other words, to be in the top half of the league. You got to have somebody that knows how to play defense. You just have to. It's just common practice with all the coaches and all these. Well, while Carolina sits and waits, we'll see. The Leafs are going to try and make it a 7-game series, and for now they're going to try and make it a 6-game series so they can actually do that. The NHL playoffs. Former TV analyst Keith Jones, as president, removes GM Daniel Briere's interim tag.
yes. So the Philadelphia Flyers put out a press release today saying that in light of recent events and changes around the team, they were trying to get more flyery than they had ever been before. So not only is their uniform getting an update to a slightly duller shade of orange, but they've also hired Keith Jones as president and made Danny Briere the full time GM now. Um, Glad to see that Carson's actions over the summer, over the spring, namely pushing a wheelchair down the stairs, hasn't negatively affected Danny's ability to retain a job in the NHL.
I, you know, I, we'll go to the football after we talk about Toronto FC, and Michael Bradley is in England. He's going to get a procedure in England. How long is that going to put him out for?
Uh, Initial estimates were, I believe, 8 weeks. Um, it is it Toronto's been having a real issue lately with a lot of injuries. They currently have 8 players that are currently lingering And it's been a bit of an issue for them, especially heading into Montreal to play Montreal FC tonight. It's going to be a problem. Sorry, Montreal CF for Club de Foot. Um, but yeah, it's been a tough season for them. Everything hasn't seemed to have gone right since 2017, but that's maybe just me looking at it from a slightly jaundiced perspective.
Yeah. So apparently Toronto FC stands for foot to crotch. What the hell's going on in the stands?
Oh, that was yeah.
What's going on?
I'm gonna lay it at the feet of the inebriati. Um, there have been 4 separate individuals now who have been identified through security footage and cell phone footage as having instigated violence against Montreal fans at the last home game. Now, those individuals have actually been barred from all MLSE properties for future notice,
Oh,
with no possibility of reinstatement.
whoa, forever.
Yeah, they're done. So if you had TFC tickets and you got drunk and you punched a Montreal fan, congratulations, your season tickets are now null and void. You're not going to get your money back for that either.
So essentially, they're calling them a social disease.
Well done, sir.
They never, they can't be cured. That's too bad. Okay, let's go to the Canadian Football League. And oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. The Red Blacks offense boosted by Acklin. He's back again.
Yeah, they've actually signed him all the way through the 2024 season. They announced on Friday. He's a proven playmaker. He's been extremely productive for them. Really glad to see him back with the club. You know, he was enough to make you nervous every time he took the field. But I am glad to see that he's back for them for another 2 seasons, because it'll make games against them a little bit more interesting.
Argos signed Changa Hodge.
This was a nice signing. Hodge was in Calgary in 2022 after starting the year with the Arizona Cardinals in the NFL. He played 2 seasons at Virginia Tech, where he played 14 games and got 3 passes for 25 yards. He started at Villanova, where he had 99 catches for 1,685 yards and 15 touchdowns.
That's Buffalo.
Over 31 games.
That's Buffalo for you folks that may not know.
So yeah, he's also Aaron Parker was added to the suspended list for the Argos. So that's another little tidbit coming out of there.
Riders signed an offensive lineman.
Give me a second. My computer's running a little bit slow.
That's
Frank.
okay. Phil Saleh.
Right. No, this is one of those things that you heard about and you think to yourself, well, this is going to make things more difficult for everybody else. They had an issue last year with offense, so I'm glad to see that they picked him up. He played 5 seasons at Fordham, and in 2022 he played with the Rams. So this is that, and now that was in the Patriot League, just so that you don't confuse those Rams with the other Rams.
So apparently now the Ticats aren't scot-free. They have themselves a Scott Milanovic.
Yeah, good to see him back in the league again. He's actually going in as an assistant head coach, if memory serves.
Senior assistant head coach.
Right. Well,
Senior.
Jokes about age aside.
Senior.
No, so it is good to see him back. Reinebold is also back with them. This is his 7th season with them and his 3rd stint.
On and off.
So that's interesting. Yeah.
On and off.
Craig Butler actually stepped away in 2022 for family reasons. Charlie Taggart actually is back as well after spending 2022 as the assistant video coordinator.
They got like 9 coaches.
I know.
Supposed to be a coach's cap. What the heck's going on here? Mind you, they've got the Grey Cup, so they're going to be willing to pay whatever fines come up if they can give themselves the most advantage to win a Grey Cup. And I hope for my Hamilton Tiger Cat friends that they don't do it. I mean that they do it. Oh, geez. A Freudian slip there. Oh my God, how terrible am I? No, I wish them all the luck in the world. I mean, this has been a century without a Ticat win, so sympathy must fall on Ticat fans.
How long has it been now, Frank? Is it 23 years, 24 years?
But
24, I think.
It was a century ago, as far as I remember. It was in the last century, 1999, I think it was. So that'd be 24 years, right?
Yes. Goodness gracious.
That's why I like, Hamilton fans that make fun of Leaf fans.
Well, I
Hockey's
mean,
a 32 team league. Canadian football's a 9 team
fine.
league. I'm
Uh,
just
it,
saying. I'm
it
just
does.
saying.
Well, here's a legitimate question for you though. Does that mean that with fewer teams, there's more competition, therefore the standard is higher?
Well, higher than it would be if there were 32 teams,
Right.
right?
So then, objectively speaking, that means that the Maple Leafs playoff drought is worse because the talent is more diluted, whereas Hamilton is playing in a more concentrated league.
Well, actually, I would say you're doing less with more.
Oh, fair.
In the Leafs case, they're doing more with less.
Less.
No, well, we have to also, when you talk about that. Now, Aaron's kidding. I know you're kidding. The thing about football is, and the thing about football in Canada is that it relies very heavily on the Canadian talent. And football's not a primary sport in Canada. You know how much I love football, but the reality is it's not a primary sport. So to have a really good team in the Canadian Football League, finding really good Canadian players that make a difference is a challenge. And the reason it's a challenge is because everybody else is looking for those same players. They're fighting over the same players, arguing about the same players, trying to sign the same players. Whereas with the American players, new players, a new player that comes to the Canadian Football League, an American new player, the odds on him being a star are far higher than a Canadian. Far higher. Simply because of the talent pool that they have to pick from as far as American players are concerned. The
Yeah, I mean,
Canadian
there.
talent pool is not it's a lot more shallow. It's important and there's great players there, but it's a little less deep.
No, and that's fair. The player pool that the American teams have to draw from, and the talent pool to draw from there is approximately 10 times as large, 20 times as large as it is in Canada. It's just based on the fact that not as many people play football up here, and our population is 1/10 their size.
Yeah, we saw a quarterback this week sign with BC who had an opportunity to try out in the NFL. He said, "Nah, I'm going to go play in the CFL. Best you're going to give me is a clipboard, and I want a football, and I want to throw some passes, not talk about them." And so he's gone to the Canadian Football League. And that's what the Canadian Football League needs to do more and more. They really need to give new quarterbacks, young quarterbacks, an opportunity. And maybe that's part of the issue is that, it seems for a time that they can only afford to have one quarterback or they have a backup and then they have a guy that maybe they've got to do something to attract more quarterbacks from the US to come to Canada to be quarterbacks. There has to be a way to bring more in and hopefully make it quicker to find out which ones are adaptable to this game because they clearly have to because we've seen many a quarterback who's very talented, star quarterbacks in the NFL who come to Canada and look lost.
No, it is true. More frequently, you'll see players going the other way and adapting better to the American game because it's more ground focused. There's less throwing that they actually have to do. I appreciate the rules for the CFL though. With 46 players on the field, two at least two who have to be identified as quarterback, and up to 20 American players. You know, so there is the opportunity there to bring in more American players if they need to. The question is then, what can Canadians do to address the perceived imbalance? The more a team brings in American players.
Yeah, and the final issue with the Canadian Football League is that there are a lot of people that are they're confused about how there seem to be more opportunities for different towns to get a team in the Canadian Football League. I think that's a great thing, and the temporary stands is the main reason why that interest has risen. And all the hope in the world for that. We got about 30 seconds left, and we got to make it a Leaf Talks. Okay, so what's the score at the end of the first period?
Score at the end of the first period is going to be 2-1. I'm not going to say for who.
Okay, and I'm going to say the final score is going to be 5-4, and I'm not going to say for who the Leafs. I mean, not for who.
Now, is that overtime or regulation?
Uh, Either way, Tavares is getting a hat trick. I said he's going to have a great game, and I'm saying he's getting a hat trick tonight.
You know what? If Riley's on the point uncorking and Tavares is in the bumper and referees actually call penalties like we've been asking them to, that could very well happen. So
Well, that hasn't happened.
I just heard the anthem just finished right there, so it looks like we're about ready to go live.
Yeah, we are. Okay, listen. Thanks, guys. It's been a pleasure. We're going to the hockey game. You've been watching Spanglish Sports World, Candid Frank Live, Leaf Talk. Check you out later. We're going to watch hockey.